I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Yes or no? Did you ever take banned substances to enhance your cycling performance?
Yes.
I had no prior knowledge of the planned assault on Nancy Kerrigan.
I am deeply sorry for my irresponsible and selfish behavior I engaged in.
Welcome to Oops the Podcast, everybody. Happy holidays. Hope you're enjoying yourselves. Hope you're healthy and safe and relaxing in some capacity. I'm Giulio Gallerati. I'm with Francis Ellis, festively dressed, looking red, looking good.
I'm always looking red.
Oh, I didn't mean it like that.
No, but something that's plagued me my whole life. Everyone always tells me that I'm red. My skin tone, my hair, whatever it is.
Well, we both, I mean, I guess I'm wearing a blue shirt, but we're both wearing green pants.
There you go.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
You know, I can't remember the last time I was wearing green pants with someone. It was actually a coincidence. So this is good, dude.
Hell yeah. I love the color green.
Feeling good.
Yeah. I was, I'll tell you, New York City restaurants have shut down. And the night before they did, last Sunday, I was out walking around. It was the last night before the restaurants were going to shut down indoors or whatever. And there was almost like a vibe around town of like, this is the last hurrah. And everyone was out. It was really warm and everyone was out sort of celebrating or trying to like pump one last infusion of cash into the restaurants. And there were some live bands, these roving live bands.
So cool.
3 to 4 piece bands, like a singer, with a electric remote, whatever mic, and a drummer, playing the drums on some kind of like box, with these brush
very cool
things. And then a guitarist, and they would just set up in front of these restaurants where people were outside dining and start playing. And then a little crowd would gather. And it was the coolest thing I'd seen in New York.
That's sick.
In a long time.
I've seen a couple things like that, not in as triumphant of a fashion, but let me ask you this. Was the band kind of playing one song at one restaurant and moving to the next restaurant, or were they staying in the same spot?
They would do a set. And
sick.
The first place we saw them, because we passed them, it didn't seem that the restaurant was very receptive. The restaurant goers there were very receptive to their playing.
Oh, interesting.
Because people seemed to be, it was maybe a more fancy, a little stiffer restaurant. But then they did a couple songs, and then they picked things up, and then they went down the block, a couple blocks, and that's when we actually circled back and joined them.
Cool.
And started walking with them.
Sick.
And
the procession.
There was a guy. I mean, at that point we were groupies.
Sick.
Instant groupies, like waiting to
Following
find where
them on tour.
We travel with the band. Yeah, travel 3 blocks with the band. And they went to this bar called Cowgirl Restaurant or something. It's on 8th Avenue in the Village. And outdoor tables and all this, people having kind of goofy drinks and stuff. And they set up on a little island, sort of median island, right? So
like the bike lane
in the
island.
Street. So in between the bike lane and the street.
Yes.
There was a little patch
of
cement.
Yeah. It's cool.
And they set up on that. I mean, these people, and they were kind of bopping around with the music. One step backwards, and that guitarist is getting creamed by a UPS truck.
Crazy, dude.
And it almost happened a couple times, and we'd all kind of be like, ah.
Holding your breath.
But they did some awesome music. They did a Prince cover. They did Queen.
Sick.
They did some really good stuff, and they were pretty good. They weren't bad. And I'll tell you something: the people were so excited. It was as if we were watching live music for the first time.
Dude, I know it's a crazy time, bro.
And then after about 8 songs, just as their final number was coming to a close, the police came and got furious with them and shut them down.
Damn.
They didn't have a permit. By that point, it was probably 10:45, 10:30ish. And, there are residents above these restaurants. And you just have to imagine that there's probably some elderly woman or man in a rent-controlled place. He's been there for 35 years.
Right.
10 o'clock is his bedtime.
Honestly, like, I think that guy should fuck off. Like, it's not normal times.
So,
it's not 4 a.m. in the Village during a normal time.
But does any of that factor?
It should.
In his mindset.
I hope so. I hope he's like, maybe not, but I like to think that hopefully there's some reasonable rent control, grumpy curmudgeon tenants who realize that no one's going to get to eat outdoors anymore. And
It's possible that person that doesn't even know that there is a coronavirus pandemic right now.
you
They
really
are
think that
living
person
in
exists?
a shuttered, dusty apartment with no light
TV.
comes in. They have some errand boy who gets their groceries for them.
They have a cat.
2 cats.
Yeah.
2 cats. And they, do crossword puzzles
Yeah.
all day. That guy doesn't have cable, doesn't have a TV, and he might not know.
That's such an interesting thing to think about. Like, I wonder how many people in the world don't know about it. There are some.
There are for sure some.
There are some. And I'm not even just talking about indigenous cultures. Like, I'm wondering if there's, I'm serious. I'm wondering if there's any people, because you hear about these islands where,
Island
like,
peoples.
if you go,
That's
they're like,
exactly what I was thinking.
they're really like off of India. I think there's one of them. They're like really hostile towards.
Yeah, there
they
are
kill
some cannibalistic places
Yeah.
too.
Well, that's fucking
off
crazy.
New Guinea and stuff like
Right.
that. Yeah.
Nuts, man.
But my point being, right, so that guy has, for the last 30 years, New York City probably has had laws against live bands playing out in the street past a certain hour.
People on the community board, all this shit.
And all of a sudden, his bedtime, he goes to bed at 9 o'clock, right? There's a band striking up their number at 10:30. Why is this happening? He calls in a noise complaint to the local precinct.
Right.
Police arrive. Get the fuck out of here. You can't do this.
Right.
He's not thinking,
Fuck
I
that
should
guy.
let it go. It's a rough time. People need their live music. It's the last night, whatever.
Right. There has to be a point in some people's lives, if they're like very miserable, where they don't care anymore about anybody else because they think that their life has turned out so poorly. But they're like, fuck you.
Yes.
Oh, you think this sucks? You know what really sucks? And then they
Yeah.
list their.
Either that or they just don't care.
Mhm.
They don't,
Yeah.
they're not, it's why, I don't know. This is my life. I live this way. Don't infringe upon my way of living.
Right. It's fair.
Yeah.
Dude, isn't it interesting too? Like, remember back in the day, like, especially, I did a bunch of these when I started comedy, and I'm certainly not above them now. But those shows where they happen in a bar and the people at the bar or the restaurant don't know that there's a show that's
Don't
about
know
to
that
happen.
there's a comedy
It's like
show.
we call it, I guess, guerrilla comedy. Let's call it.
I've done 100 of
I've
those.
done it a bunch of them, and they can be really rough because you're performing for a group of people who don't care and don't want to see it.
Or
it's the same as performing on the subway.
They might even feel like you're being an asshole for performing while they're trying to have a conversation.
Right, which is also funny because a lot of comedians start going, there's a comedy show happening, like they get mad.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you don't have the right to get mad in
Yeah,
this
they were
situation.
here first.
But I wonder, if that were to be possible now, I imagine that the people will be much more receptive.
Could be.
The same way, like you said, the people on the street were so excited.
Yeah.
But then it was funny to like juxtapose that with the people eating at the fancy restaurant who are like, oh God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's such an
For
interesting time. But dude, I saw one of those bands. I was eating outside maybe a month or two ago. And obviously it was different circumstances because, things were still going to be open a little bit longer or whatever. But this band, it was a roaming band, and they had a giant barcode on the drum so you could scan it and Venmo them.
That's what a lot of people were doing.
And I bet that those people were cleaning up, and I'm glad that they are because it's great stuff out there.
For sure. There was even a guy sitting on the sidewalk. This was the funniest part. The band picked up another groupie who was this just middle-aged white man wearing a windbreaker jacket who all of a sudden became their tour manager. Dude, I'm not kidding you.
Stand back.
He was doing he was carrying like an amplifier for them. He went into the restaurant and was like, I'm with the band. Said I'm with the band.
That's great.
Can we play?
That's so
And they
cool.
had met him that like half an hour earlier.
That's
and
crazy.
then
How do you know that?
because I walked in with him because I was asking for a table.
Oh, I thought you were going to say I was also asking for the band.
We had come in with the band, but
Right.
we weren't pretending to be part of the crew.
right.
So then he stood in the bike lane because people were now like kind of milling around the bike lane. The bike lane was between the band and the audience. And so people were like crossing the bike lane to put money in their bucket or whatever, or take pictures of them. And people were still coming up the bike lane on bikes. And he would stand in the middle of the bike lane and go like this, slow down, like a dad in a residential neighborhood, slow down, like waving his arms.
Bands at play.
Yeah. people are listening to live music here.
That's crazy.
He
man.
was so official.
That's sick.
He was so official. And yeah, I mean, it was really fun to watch him become that guy.
My dad would be like, "Oh, see what people can do."
Yeah,
My dad has a very like
Yeah.
Lockean philosophy on humans.
That's very well said. John Locke, State of Nature, right?
I don't know. I don't know specifically.
Well, John Locke wrote
I forget what it was. His
two
words were
treatises
called.
on government. And I think his big philosophy was that man in a state of nature will actually find a way to self-govern.
Right. And my tendency is to disagree with that. Like maybe that point not, but in general, like I don't believe in people as much as my dad does.
Interesting.
I believe that we sort of like at our core are like out for ourselves and that we kind of suck.
Yeah. Yeah, but here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
In the absence of rule of law, in the absence of government
Mhm.
and leadership, those people who feel that way,
Mhm.
like fuck everyone, I'm going to go out and get mine.
Mhm.
At some point, you can't get yours without some semblance of order.
No, totally.
Because if everything breaks down,
Right. It's in your best interest to have order. Right.
there's nothing to have anymore.
Right.
And you're just walking to the grocery store to get your shit, and people are like throwing bottles at you, and there's it's crazy.
No, that totally
It's just
makes sense.
violence everywhere. So
But I just remember like in high, I forget when I learned about this, but like it was sort of like the Locke school of thought versus the Hobbes school
Yeah.
of thought,
Mhm.
which is like a more cynical. And I don't even think I'm a cynical person, but like still, I kind of tend to lean more that way. Not that it matters, but
did Hobbes write? Will you look this
Leviathan,
up?
right?
Leviathan, right? And that was the idea of the Leviathan was the snake, and that the government was the snake, or something. They were like the people. There was that whatever.
Fiery metaphor.
Did he write civil disobedience? Civil disobedience.
Leviathan?
Leviathan. Who wrote civil was that John Locke? Fuck.
I don't know,
Ugh.
dude.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
it's funny. It's amazing like what things you retain,
Yeah, I know.
and it frustrates me. It makes me not want to watch movies. Thoreau.
Henry Thoreau wrote Civil
Mm.
Disobedience. Boy, I'm all over the map here.
Um,
Anyway,
good stuff though.
I have one more piece of this. This
Sure.
was splendid evening that came out of nowhere.
Love
We before we went walking around the West Village to find this band and sit down and have margaritas at Cowgirl Bar, we went to a restaurant called Emily, West Village. You ever been there?
it. No,
Oh boy,
it's really good.
it's the real deal.
Really.
But there are only two things on the menu that you've got to have.
What are
And
they?
one is the burger,
Mhm.
and the other is their like pepperoni pizza.
Mm,
But they make nice stuff, but those two things are like out of this
the
world.
thing.
So we ordered those things. When we came up to the restaurant, my name was on the Resi reservation. And the guy, we showed up and the guy goes, right this way. And he points at me. He goes, "You're hilarious, by the way.
Oh, that's great.
I came to one of your shows back, a couple months back when times were normal." And I was like, very sweet. I was like,
Great.
"Oh, thank you so much. What a lovely thing to say." So we sit down and we have a waitress comes over and starts, serving us and being really nice. I think it was, we finish our meal and I ask for the check. And then she says, "By the way, I'm going to tell my boyfriend I served you tonight."
Oh, dude, great.
Hang on. She hadn't mentioned anything throughout the course of the meal, right? And it's entirely possible that that was just her being nice and wanting to afford me the privacy of a nice evening with my girlfriend.
Totally.
It's also possible that she saw the guy up front say that to me, or at some point
Oh, and,
he
like, looked you
relayed
up.
to her that I was a comedian.
Right.
And she had no idea who I was. And because this is what I thought. She gave me the check and said, almost in the same breath, "I know who you are." At that point, I have no choice but to leave a very good tip.
Well, yeah, dude. You think that that's what went down? That is actually true. You have no choice.
I have no choice.
You have no choice because you don't want her being like, "Yeah, that guy fucking
Now-
doesn't tip."
I'm amused by this thought. I am not wedded to it. I am not saying this is the case. It's much more likely that she was just very sweet. Maybe she did know who I was. And, you know, I'm not sucking my own dick here. But I thought it was a hysterical idea that someone, a waitress could be so calculating as to hold on to that information till the very moment when it would bind me to the commitment of giving her a much better tip for the sake out of fear.
Right. No, totally.
That because the worst thing that a public person can be known for
is being like cheap.
Aside from like, you know, being a domestic abuser or something.
Right.
Or a DUI
or pedophile.
person. I guess there are a lot of things.
Criminal activity aside.
God damn it.
No. Criminal activity aside.
You're
right.
PR stench that is
bad.
attached to a lot of people, which people will cite as the first thing they know about that
guy's
person
a cheap fuck. Totally.
is this guy doesn't tip.
Yeah.
In accordance with what we know to be his wealth. Justin Bieber, when he goes to a restaurant, has no choice but to leave a fucking 50% tip.
He needs to leave between a 50 and 100%.
He has no choice. A 20% tip
choice.
from Justin Bieber is absolutely a problem.
Yeah.
And that's because at any given moment, someone will take a little picture of the receipt that he signed, J. Biebs, and they'll be like, look at this, Justin Bieber only left a 18 to 20% tip, which, you know, is a normal tip or whatever.
Normal tip?
And he's now known as that guy, and everyone fucking hates him for it.
Yeah, you can't be that guy.
Pete Sampras famously became outed as cheap because Andre
How
Agassi
awkward
wrote
was
about
that
it
moment?
when he served that ball at him? Yeah, dude.
Dude, that was fucking terrible. In the charity event?
Andre Agassi, these tennis greats, obviously, outed Pete Sampras in his book.
Oh, really? In the book?
That was how I read it first.
There was a live event where Agassi was mic'd. They were mic'd.
Yeah, but that was him doubling down on
that was
joke.
after the book?
Yeah.
Oh.
And Agassi's book was a bestseller.
Was before, yeah.
And it came out, and it was in the book that Agassi said that Sampras was very cheap and didn't tip well. And then I don't know if Sampras responded to that, but then they were playing in this charity thing where they had their mics on, as you said.
Yeah.
And Agassi starts doing an impression of Sampras. Sampras did an impression of Agassi.
He ripped a ball at him or something.
Yeah, and then Agassi starts pulling his pockets out and being like, I don't have any money for the tip. I'm you.
Oh my God.
And then Sampras served the ball
at a
as
charity
hard as he
event,
could.
dude. Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Charity doubles.
You can't I am not in the realm of having to pay a 50% tip, right? I don't worry about that. And I'm always a guy who's giving 20%. That's my baseline.
Of course, yeah.
If not more. But is there any chance that she had it in her mind, that she was as calculating as to say like, hey, just so you know, I know who you are. Now, here's your bill.
Is there any chance? Of course, there's a chance. It seems unlikely, but you never, dude, it could be. Times are tough.
All right, so here's my question. Let's say that I'm right about that idea.
Yeah.
What is the tip that I have to give to protect
30%.
myself? 30%?
Yeah.
I think I gave 32%.
Yeah, I think that's very generous and very nice.
I have to tell you, I didn't feel generous. Felt like my hands were tied.
You felt like you had to?
Felt obligated.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. No offense to that restaurant. It's not as if the service was 32% worthy.
Uh-huh.
What do you think? Dude, you give a tip of 32% just out of the blue.
Uh-huh.
That service needs to be extraordinary.
Yeah, or there has to be some sort of like the reason. But I agree. I give 20%.
Does your tip reflect the service at all?
I'll never go below 20, even if it's bad. I'll never walk out without tipping.
Me neither.
But if somebody goes above and beyond and does something exceptional or something, like maybe I will. But typically, I mean, shit's already expensive, dude. You know what I mean? Like times are tough for everybody. So like 20%, of course, maybe a little more depending or whatever. But if I was in the situation that you were in, I would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought that this story was going to end with her being like, "You're on my list of people I'm allowed to bang."
Oh,
with my boy, I don't know why. Like,
well, I'm glad she didn't say that.
Has anyone ever said that to you?
Even more.
Well, speaking of
kidding.
restaurants,
I'm fucking kidding.
speaking of restaurants, now that things are like getting weird as it gets cold, if you guys are in New York or in a place where they're like taking away indoor dining or whatever, make sure if you're going to order delivery, try to order directly from the restaurant if you can. Try to tip in cash if you can.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't do delivery that way, maybe walk and pick it up if you can. Like anything you can do, just because like here in New York, like we're all really concerned about the health of our restaurants, and
Yeah.
it's such a big part of the city, and it's going to be really hard.
Exactly. That's really well said. And if you go through the apps, I know it's convenient and whatnot, but you know, they keep the big service fee and the restaurants don't see as much of the money if that's the case. So we have to buckle ourselves down for that and help them out. But Giulio, you make a good point. I mean, if you're going to walk to the restaurant, right? Like what's the right thing to wear?
Francis, I'm really glad you brought that up.
Oh, you have an idea?
I have an idea.
Oh.
Especially because in this time where the weather is so ambiguous, where if it gets too hot, you're uncomfortable. If it's a little colder, you're uncomfortable. You need something versatile. And that's why you need a pair of Bird Dogs pants.
Sure fucking do.
Bingo.
Sure fucking do. Help out your local restaurants by wearing Bird Dogs pants to pick up your food from their door.
From their door.
Yeah.
Wear something comfy. You know, that sleek silk interior will keep you cool, even if you start sweating a little bit between the thighs as you get 2, 3, 4 blocks into your walk.
That's right. The built-in underwear liner means that as you get to the restaurant, if you want to pack your pockets with after dinner mints from the podium at the front, those mints aren't going to bounce around and knock against your bits and pieces as uncomfortably. I don't really think that's something people worry about so much. But
I'll tell you what they do worry about, dude.
Yeah.
You know what they do worry about? Getting mugged on their way to pick up their food.
They sure do.
And that's why it's a good thing that if you use promo code OOPS right now at birddogs.com, you will receive a free pair of nunchucks.
Yeah, leave your wallet and your cell phone at home, but put your nunchucks in the pockets of your Bird Dogs pants.
Exactly.
As you go to brave the elements and the gauntlet of potential muggers en route to getting your falafel.
That's right. Along with your fake wallet,
Yeah.
which you heard about on last
Your
episode.
drop wallet.
Your drop wallet. Be sure to bring
Yeah.
your nunchucks. And if you're thinking, I don't know how to use nunchucks, well, guess what? Have you ever fucking heard of YouTube? Go on, get on there and watch a video for 20 minutes
Nunchuck
and you'll be fine.
tutorial. Birddogs.com. Use promo code OOPS. You'll be all squared away.
Love it, dude. Love it. So, dude, it's the holidays, right?
Yep.
And I was thinking about some of my like most memorable holiday things
Okay.
that I think of when I think of the holidays.
Yeah.
Eggnog and this and that. But there's one memory that I have that was like really odd. And I'm curious if anything like this has ever happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the memory. My cousins, I must have been 7, and my cousins dressed me up like a girl.
Yep.
They put me in a dress. They put lipstick on me. They give me high heels.
Sure.
And while in the high heels, I fell down the stairs.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
I barreled all the way down the stairs to the bottom, and then my cousin had to run and try to help me up. But like, there's something insane about that to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dressed in drag, tumbling down the stairs.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not great.
Is that cruel of them? Like, were we just being kids? Like, I don't.
Well,
really
here's the question: were you crying as they dressed you in that stuff, or were you kind of embracing it?
I was just kind of like following the lead of my older cousins who I trusted and assumed to know more about the world than I did.
My sister would dress me up in her clothing, her gymnastics outfits,
Like
all
in,
the time.
like a unitard.
Yeah, like leotards
Okay.
with also like little skirts and stuff. And we have videos of it from when I was a kid. I don't look as happy as I think I should have for them to have allowed it to keep happening. I don't look.
not right.
I don't look like I'm part of it. I look like I'm a sideshow.
Do you hold things like that against your sister
No.
in adulthood?
No.
I don't either, and I always wonder about that because you go to therapy, they start asking you about your relation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They start asking you about your relationship with your siblings and your parents, and like I don't hold anything against my brother. And maybe it's because I was older, and maybe he holds things against me or whatever.
That's probably more likely.
But like he did annoying shit to me, dude. Like
Mhm.
I'd be lying on the couch watching TV, and he'd come around the corner in the basement, and he'd pull out a Nerf gun and shoot me between the eyes and run away.
Oh,
And then
God.
when I'd hurt him, I would get in trouble.
Yeah, it's always the retaliation that's spotted by the referees.
You know, but you were a younger sibling.
I was.
Did you find that your parents would be defending you, or because you were a boy?
No, my parents defended my sister,
The princess.
Yeah, but I was also the one who just like I didn't know my own strength. I thought we were fighting on an equal playing field.
You just kick your sister's ass.
Kinda, not intentionally. We would be doing some goofy thing, and then all of a sudden I'd like push her into the pool, and I would. I thought it was funny until her head was bleeding, because I'd hit pushed her off the. I'm not saying that's what happened, but that's the kind of thing where I'd be like, ha ha ha, this is fun, wham, and then it's like, oh no, please don't tell mom and dad, but we need to get that stitched. That's what would happen. God. I didn't get it, dude. I didn't know who I could play with and who I couldn't rough,
Right.
But no, I mean, I will say that I became much closer with my sister as adults.
Right.
It was tough because we were so competitive with one another.
Really?
Yeah.
In what way?
Well, I would say athletically and academically. We went to the same school. She was 2 years older than me. She was a very good student, and a star athlete herself. She played lacrosse at Yale.
Oh wow.
And it was tough for me because she was kind of getting recruited at a time when I was in high school, and I didn't know if I'd be able to kind of follow that.
Do the Ivy
method.
League, right? And it's incredible that you guys you went to the two most historical American educational institutions.
Well, but it was crazy because when she got into Yale, I remember it, and the whole family went nuts and celebrated, and we couldn't believe it. But I was a freshman, and at that time, I didn't, or maybe I was a sophomore. Yeah, I was a sophomore. But I still had no idea what my options were for college at that point, and I was like, oh my God, my older sister just got into fucking Yale.
Interesting.
What am I supposed to do now?
Right. It just, you felt the pressure on.
Kind of.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be just the letdown in the family.
Totally. No, dude, I get it.
Coda.
I get it. And even if it's not something that's perpetrated by your parents, in the sense of maybe that pressure didn't exist, but by her setting the bar so high, inevitably there is pressure.
Yeah.
Regardless of the expectations of the family.
Well, and also my mom had gone to Princeton and then done her graduate degree at Yale. So there was a real linear continuity to this Ivy League thing. And again, at that point I had no idea.
Yeah.
It seemed so unlikely to me. But as it turned out, it was actually a lot easier, I would say, for me to get in to Harvard than it was for her to get into Yale. So in a way, it was lucky that she got in first. My recruiting process was much more obvious and squared away than hers was.
Interesting. Well, it worked out, dude.
Yeah. So
it's funny. I had the opposite situation. I don't know what it is. And you think that, and granted, I was the first, I had a younger brother. I didn't have an older brother. So that whole thing wasn't in place, I guess, because of that. But my dad, who's a professor at a very good school, and he also, he went to Columbia, all this shit, whatever. But for some reason, my parents, set the bar really low for us.
Huh.
For me, my dad would be I forget exactly what he would say, but he'd be do it, whatever you want to do. He'd be if you want to be he's as long as you're happy, whatever I don't know. I never felt pressure like that. And I wonder if my brother felt it because I was the older brother and I was a great tennis player and he ended up being a great tennis player too. And I wonder to what degree that has something to do with it, being the second in line.
Do you wish that your parents had expected or more of you?
Not really. I mean, I'm happy with the way things worked out so far, knock on wood, I guess. There are times where I'm ooh, maybe I could have been a great tennis player if I was pushed or whatever. They didn't really even care about my grades. As long as I didn't get bad comments, they were fine with it. And I definitely think that maybe with a different mindset, things could have been a little different. I had to kind of learn on my own that if I want to live a certain kind of life, it's going to take this, and this. They just didn't tell me that, which was weird. You know what I mean? I never did internships. I never I like gave tennis lessons in the summers. Like,
Right.
I don't know. So it took me like a little bit to catch up to that. But my point is, like you said, your sister setting the bar so fucking high, like that must put pressure, like extra pressure on you. And granted, I heard like with all your parents' lineage and stuff, all the incredible things that they did too. Like obviously that adds to it, but it's an interesting thing to examine.
Yeah, but I would say we also weren't like an Ivy. I hate to say it this way because it sounds ridiculous. We weren't like an Ivy League family.
Right.
You know, we had my mom, the matriarch of the family, whom we all looked up to as this sort of like intelligent being, this
Right.
superior brain power person who we like none of us felt like we could touch that.
Right.
And so that was like, it felt
Intangible.
unrealistic, and nobody was striving to emulate our mom
Interesting.
because she had done her thing, and we were all like, well, that's too fucking
You're like,
smart.
there's no way we can do that.
Yeah. So that was out of the question. And then also, it's not as though my parents were Ivy League people who had, you know, donated money to the schools or kept up with alumni groups
Right,
or
right.
were very involved in student life or anything like that.
Right.
We never even went to the colleges. We didn't like
Right.
go to reunions with them.
Right.
There was it wasn't in our face. If anything, we were in Maine, right? So like we were kind of removed from like the New Jersey,
The
Connecticut,
tri-state competitive parent thing.
that swirl of like. Also, nobody from Maine was going to Ivy League schools.
Right.
There wasn't really a state that sent people to top.
Right.
Dude, my class at Harvard, there were like 4 kids that went to Harvard from my
Man.
whole state.
It's crazy.
Whereas from Connecticut,
It's a bunch, I'm sure.
it's got to be like hundreds.
Right.
The point is that we didn't feel like it was Ivy League or bust.
Right.
You know, it was definitely do your best, but like I will say that do your best was there was vigilance to that.
Right.
So my mom knew what our best was,
Mm-hmm.
and we were not really allowed to define our best.
Gotcha. Well, but what about but your sister by your sister going and playing sports at that kind of situation, that seems like that immediately takes away that kind of like romanticized vision of your mom's success, and you're like, oh boy, now I need to do this too. Type of thing. Like, did that kick in? I mean, like you said, it ended up being like an easy process for you. Easier, obviously. Not
Well,
easy.
I think the thing was, I'm not really sure what you mean by that question, to be honest with you.
Like, because you said your parents, like you guys weren't like an Ivy League family. Like your mom had done all this incredible stuff. She was like, oh my God, she's so incredible. We could
Yeah.
never do this.
My dad, by the way, went to Amherst College,
Which is
so
might as well.
it's a very, very good school.
the same shit.
He got into Princeton, but decided not to go.
Right. It's like the same level.
Yeah.
Which is funny though, because like unless you're in like certain circles, like you don't even know about those schools.
You don't.
Which
Those
is so
small
weird.
NESCAC schools, but they're
Right.
spectacular colleges.
They're amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
But to your point though, your question, did I lose the romantic vision?
No, I mean the romantic vision, like you said, your mom's like level was so high
Yeah.
that when your sister got into Yale,
Did it
was like,
seem more attainable?
in the sense where now you're like, oh fuck, there is pressure because she did it. It can be done. I can do it too.
Yes. So this goes back to the competition thing. When I mentioned
Yes.
that we were athletically and academically, we were. I was always 2 years behind her. We went to the same school for 8 years, and then I went to a different school, and she stayed on. But I always kind of knew what the benchmarks were that she had hit.
Mhm.
We weren't. There wasn't like a history. I didn't have her grades in front of me, but I knew that I was kind of right there with her. In
Yeah,
fact, we
gotcha.
were getting almost the same exact grades,
Right.
same SAT scores pretty much. So as long as I did that, I felt like I was putting myself in a decent position
Right.
given the formula that she'd already shown.
Right.
And then it turned out that, I was a lacrosse player who had, I think, made it much easier for myself than even she did for herself, by just being a big dude. Like I was a big
Right.
guy in high school. And so it was more apparent to me earlier in high school that I was going to be able to go kind of
Right.
where I wanted.
Right. You didn't have to like prove yourself as much as the guy who's like the shorter guy who has something to prove. You like,
Yeah.
you had all the measurements, so to speak.
But there was a real, I had a hard, I've said this before, that the process was anticlimactic. When my sister got into Yale, our family went nuts. We
Right.
celebrated. When I got into Harvard, I was like weirdly disappointed. I felt like I had cheated because this stupid athletic recruiting thing
right.
seemed like a backdoor cheat code
Uh-huh.
into this prestigious place.
Uh-huh.
And I had known for a while that I was going to get in.
Right.
So the email or the letter I got was a total formality,
Uh-huh.
such that when I got it, I remember at like 3 p.m. on a random school day. I didn't tell my parents until later that evening.
Right. Because it was so certain, there was less celebration to be had.
And they were like pretty excited. We went out to a restaurant
Mhm.
and had dinner. And I was so conflicted over this that when the waitress came and said, you know, like, are you guys celebrating something? Or, I mean, my parents said we're celebrating something. And she said, what? And they said, our son got into college today. And she said, oh my God, where? And I was angry. I felt like we didn't deserve to be celebrating this.
Really? It's weird, dude.
This was my brain has always been, it was an imposter syndrome type thing. And I looked up at the waitress and I was like, well, I got into Harvard, but it doesn't really count. I was an athlete, so it's not the same. And I like immediately shit on my achievement.
Right.
And I did it as a way of like trying to burst my parents' bubble. And then I was so upset that I like got up from the table and walked outside.
Really?
And to this day, it's one of the saddest things that I've done to my parents, because here they were, watching as their son, through 18 years of their like breaking their backs for me and helping me and, doing everything they could to help me turn out okay.
Mm-hmm.
Here was admission to Harvard, which was a big deal for them.
Yeah.
And I was saying like, fuck this. I don't deserve this. This is bullshit. In a way, being petulant,
Right.
And not letting them have their celebration.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have the perspective at that age to realize how much it meant to them and how I should let them have that.
Interesting. I mean, I think that they would just, like, if I was your parent in that situation, you did that, I would just like be concerned for you. Like, I don't think I would feel personally bad. I'd be like, you should be excited. I don't know.
Yeah, but I was almost being like, why we shouldn't be celebrating this? Like this is not right. This isn't real.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the kid. I didn't deserve this.
Interesting.
We shouldn't be out to dinner. We got any emails?
Yeah, I have one thing I want to talk about though.
Please.
Before we do one. I want to talk about plastic surgery.
Oh, fun.
So there's a couple things about it that I think are worth talking about. I mean, there's many things, but one of them, is it, and now it's Christmas time, obviously, is there a situation where you buy like your girlfriend tits
Oh my God.
without consulting her about it, that she's happy? Like, has anyone out there bought their girlfriend tits for Christmas and she would never said anything about wanting them?
I'm sure there are, but those guys run commercial real estate firms in Florida.
Right, where like everybody has fake tits.
And breasts are a typical 18th birthday present.
Right.
Or, a 26th birthday present.
Right. It's like the same as getting your ears pierced.
Yeah, exactly. It's a rite of passage.
It's getting a pair of titties.
But dude, I would say that, that's so crazy of an idea that a man would just present a gift certificate for $50,000 to so-and-so's plastic surgery shop and say like, these are for your new breasts that I want you to get.
Right?
The woman would have had to have.
Right, yeah. She would have had to have indicated.
But that's a whole world that I'm just not familiar with.
I know.
And one that has, become more and more, I think, prevalent. I think the acceptance of plastic surgery now, back in when I was growing up, it was something that was seen as
more taboo, right?
kind of horrid.
So here's the question though. Is that a product of you kind of coming from a more modest place? Like you said, you're in Maine. Like it's not like you just don't know that many people who are doing that kind of stuff. Like you said, like in South Florida, everyone gets boobs. Even in like the West Coast, like a lot of people get work done. And like, I wonder that too. I wonder if it's now just become a more acceptable thing with like people like the Kardashians who are so like seemingly open about getting work done and all that shit. Like, has that made it more socially acceptable, or has it always been and we just didn't know?
I think my answer is actually something else. I think it's that the improvements in plastic surgery and sort of the menu for plastic surgery has grown so much that people who would never have considered putting big balloons in their boobs or doing crazy, butt things are now a little bit more okay with the idea of, a tiny chin tuck or, a little tiny thing to make the wrinkles around their eyes go away. Like it's
gotten better and presumably cheaper and more accessible.
Yeah. And it's also, it's
a fair
just,
assumption.
you're not freezing your face in a look of shock and awe. I think it's become so much more human and natural that it's not that big of a deal. So, look, man, the human body is one of those things where it's crazy to think about how the life expectancy of a person 100, 200 years ago was like 60 years old. Mm-hmm. Anyone who lived longer than 60 was like an old
ancient
man.
Right.
And
much higher life
whether it's the
now.
medications or the surgeries, the knee replacements, the hip replacements, all of that, all
or
the
just knowledge in general,
stuff,
for like living a healthier lifestyle.
The developments in medicine, the way that we've learned to fight cancer, which caused you got diagnosed with cancer 100 years ago. That was it. See ya.
Right. No,
AIDS,
dude,
AIDS happened in the 80s.
Right.
70s, 80s or whatever. That's when it broke out, and it was a plague. It was a death sentence.
Yeah.
In
99% mortality rate.
In 20 years.
I know.
Which really isn't that long in the scope of like the medicine timeline. In 20 years, we've basically been able to say like,
you can take a pill a day and be fine.
At least in certain parts of the world, not a big deal.
I know. So, dude, this is another thing about this that I've thought about. Because I know, and I'm sure we know a lot of the same people, but like in New York, I've started to notice that girls that I know who are young-ish, like in their 20s, whatever, that's like a young to me, are getting a lot of work done.
Really?
To the point where they're going overboard and they don't look good. They're aging themselves by doing it.
Really?
Yes. And I would like to say, if you start getting stuff done, try to like do as best as you can to have some perspective, because I feel bad for some of my friends. And even a girl that I used to date, I noticed, I'm like, Jesus, like she like got a new face and she just looks like she's 40. And she's a 26-year-old girl who looks like she's 40.
Oh,
and I don't, and this is just my, like objectively speaking, I'm like, this was a girl who was very pretty. She didn't need to do this stuff to herself. I don't know what sort of like societal pressure, whether it's like in the big picture or with her inner circle, led her to believe I need to look like this. So now I wonder this too. It's like, maybe she looks older and she looks weird or something, but by having all that stuff done, is that some sort of like status statement? Is that you saying like,
I have the money to do
I have the money. I'm like in this is where the circle I run in. Like, is that part of it?
I think so. I think you're
so
absolutely right about that. I remember, I dated somebody who was very much in the New York City upper class private school kid, inner circle. And in the mid-20s, all of her friends all of a sudden out of nowhere started getting lip injections.
Yeah, just everybody fucking looking like this.
Everyone looking
and
like they had been punched squarely in the mouth.
Yeah.
Just dead center, both lips catching fist.
Yeah, it's wild.
Just making out with a beehive. And it was like it was shocking because a lot of these women had very sort of aquiline, slender faces. And then all of a sudden, these engorged lips.
Yeah.
It looked like a Mr. Potato Head doll where you swapped out the wrong, features.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. And to a degree, do you feel that it starts to just add sort of like an age ambiguity that a young person doesn't need. I understand the appeal of that when you're a woman who's like getting older and like you're older, like you're an older woman now and you want to look younger. I get that. But by doing the same work to your face that woman's doing, you start to look like a person who's trying to look younger.
Mm-hmm.
But you are young.
So I guess the question is, what's the age where the plastic surgery stuff actually helps?
Right. And you have, my answer to that is you have to make that decision for yourself.
It's different for everyone.
Right. I mean, hopefully you're making the right decision. You should feel good about yourself. If you want to go out there and feel good about yourself, you should do it.
Fine.
But
easier said than done.
Absolutely. But my point is, if you don't feel good about yourself, is getting a new face the answer? Like, I guess for you, maybe.
Maybe some people really do feel sexier when they've got, a
new face. It's crazy.
What have you met anybody, young people who have had work done that you actually thought it looked good?
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, a lot of the time it's stuff that you don't even notice. Like, it's like, it can be subtle.
Okay. Like what?
But like maybe a nose thing or something.
Yeah. Nose things are pretty.
And honestly,
helpful.
I've seen situations where new noses made people like change their life in a positive way. Like getting a nose job.
I had a nose thing.
I know.
Done.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a choice.
Yeah, I know.
My nose was so broken that I couldn't breathe out of the left nostril. They said that the bones had shattered. I've been punched in the face. It was by the lobsterman in Maine that did that to me.
Crazy, dude.
So the left nostril, the whole cavity, all the way the sinus down, was just closed with bones that had re-healed into kind of clogging the nostril. And do you want to know how I learned that my nose was really fucked up?
How?
Because when we started doing cocaine,
oh my God,
I couldn't take it through my left nostril.
Wow.
I would try and it wouldn't come up.
It would just like go back to the table.
Nothing would come up.
That's crazy.
It was a vacuum that had a clog in it.
Dude, hey, who's to say cocaine's all bad?
So, yeah. So
silver lining.
With that said, I would say that I had to have this surgery, and the big reason was I saw an otolaryngologist, ears, nose, and throat.
Is that what they're
Surgeon,
called?
otolaryngologist, yeah, I think. And he took a scope and went into my nose, which is really unpleasant, by the way. If you think the COVID tests where they go way back, stick a fucking camera on a tube all the way down. It's way worse.
What the fuck?
It's so bad.
The COVID test is so bad.
Dude, your eyes are watering, not just tears, but like a stream of tears.
Bro,
and you're
insane.
coughing.
Oh
it's
my
awful.
God.
So I had that, and he looked in and he was like, yeah, your nose is so bad. You have no idea. Also, this is going to mess up your sleeping. You're not going to breathe through your nose at night. So you're breathing out of your mouth. So you're waking up dry mouth and dehydrated every morning.
Fuck.
This whole thing is really bad for your health.
Need an overhaul.
We have to do this. And I said, okay, fine. And so we did it. But the surgery I had, because of how bad my nose was much more brutal. Like, he had to break the whole thing again and then start from scratch.
Jesus, dude.
And the healing process from that is not something I would wish on my worst enemy.
Wow.
When it was as bad as mine was.
Wow, dude.
It was so bad for 4 days.
Jesus.
Because you've got all this packing up in there.
Jesus.
And it feels like your whole nose is stuffed with these, like, I don't even know what, a fireball gummy, the little gobstoppers.
It's just like burning.
They're just like melting in your nose.
Oh my God.
It was so bad. Anyway, not to get into that.
Well, God, you got to get a new beak, dude.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, that was the thing too. Yeah. Because of the break, I had a slight bump in the top of it. And he was like, by the way, while we're doing this, we could fix that for you. And I was like, all right, might as well.
Yeah.
And since then, once my nose healed, people started noticing. They were like, your nose looks better. Did you do something?
Oh, that's great.
And I would be like, kinda. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because you don't want anyone thinking it's just, I was
Like
ashamed
vanity. Yeah.
to have people thinking I had done it for aesthetic purposes.
Yeah. But dude, I mean, your story is like, no, you can't, if you get a nose job because you just want a nicer nose, you're not going to be like, if you want, the second you tell your story, it completely
That's a
checks out.
super long story to have
I
to
know.
tell to everybody who says your nose looks better.
It has to be an abbreviated.
It's funny
way.
you mentioned that.
Yeah.
I didn't have a choice. Punched in the face by a lobsterman. Surgery was terrible.
You think lobsters got claws? Let me tell you.
Oh, God. It all started in the old port in Portland, Maine. We rubbed a guy the wrong way.
Unbelievable, dude. Okay, we have an email here that's pretty good. Just a good question. So this is it. I don't have an oops, but this conundrum of mine could become one if not handled properly. I thought maybe you guys could simulate a newspaper dating advice column and tell me your opinion on this matter. About 2 months ago, a girl came into my work and I thought she was very cute. After making some conversation and cracking some jokes, I gave her my Instagram and told her that if she wanted to get a coffee or hang out sometime to send me a message. I was feeling pretty good about having worked up the nerve to do that. But unfortunately...
Pause. Feeling pretty good about having worked up the nerve to give someone your Instagram.
But he was doing it in a flirty way.
I mean, he's basically put the ball in her court. Like,
Right.
that's...
There's a more effective way to do that.
It's sad that he thinks he's done his
Yeah.
big... I gathered the nerve to tell a girl to ask me out.
Right. I would
What
agree.
the hell? You're
I would-
punting, dude.
Yeah. The move there is to get her Instagram and message her.
Yeah, come
Not
on.
give her your Instagram.
Right.
But there is a way to do that. But in this situation, you don't have to do that.
Fine.
Whatever. But I fully agreed. You can take more control over that situation.
Mhm.
Step one. So anyway, he was feeling pretty good about having worked up the nerve to do that. But unfortunately, he received no message.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well.
Well, there
win
you
some,
go.
you lose
That
some.
validates exactly what I just said.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But 2 months go by, and by this time I've already forgotten about the incident. When in she walks in again, I smiled and said hello, and while I could tell she remembered me, I just made polite conversation and rang her order through. She sits down at a table to eat, and for the next 20 minutes I ponder whether or not I should approach again. Will she think I'm a creep? She clearly had no interest last time, but then again, what is there to lose? So I go up to her, this time with my name and phone number written on a piece of paper,
There
and
you
say,
go.
this is better, right? Listen, I know I already tried once, but I honestly think you're super cute. So if you want to get a coffee sometime, here's my number. She doesn't really say anything, just laughs awkwardly, and I walk away. Some hours go by, and as my shift is nearing to a close, I get a message from an unknown number.
Ooh.
Needless to say, it's her. However, she explains that while she was extremely flattered both times, that she's seeing someone at the moment.
Uh-huh.
However, she goes into detail telling me how she thinks I'm really cute and how she loved the gesture and goes as far to say, I can't believe you're single, an icy dagger into the heart of a single man. To make a long story short, I've continued texting with her from time to time, and I get a very strong vibe that she really likes me back. However, I would never outright steal another dude's girlfriend. So my question to you guys is, to what extent should you chase a girl you really like if she's already in a relationship?
Yeah, I think as hard as you want
Mm-hmm.
is my answer. Why it's not his job to play by the rules of their relationship. You know,
Uh-huh.
how many times in history has somebody met someone while they were dating another person and then left the relationship because they thought they were more interested in this new person, and then that worked out?
Dude, totally.
It's not so much that like he needs to wait. Maybe she's dating the wrong guy.
Right.
Yeah.
How many moms and dads do you know who were dating someone when they met the person they ended up marrying and left them? And it's, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So that it certainly is a thing.
Dude, the way my parents tell those stories, like my dad will refer to men that my mom dated or that he knew
Right.
early on in their lives, it sounds as if there was just a wake of dead bodies left behind that he had to like push through and
Right.
finally climb on her boat or whatever. But yeah, I think if she then responds and says like, listen, I really like this guy, or like blocks his number or whatever, that's that's your answer
Right.
at that point. But what are you supposed to just wait in the wings
Yeah.
and play it civilly and, you know, abide by, as we've talked about, this bullshit imaginary guy code?
Right.
I don't know if that dude would play it that way if the situation were reversed.
Yeah. Guy code doesn't apply when you don't know the guy.
Yeah. Survival of the fittest. You only
Absolutely.
get to kill what you eat. I don't know how to put it.
I agree, dude. But this is the one thing I'll say. Sometimes you like somebody enough that there's nothing that's going to stop you from trying. God bless you. Go for it. You should do it. Even if it's not that person, you do what you want to do. The only thing that I would say is that there's something that will fuck you up in the head about taking somebody else's girlfriend and making her your girlfriend, because then you start thinking about how that's a possibility. And maybe you start thinking that like your girlfriend's going to do that shit to you, and it's going to like fuck you up in the head or something.
You've talked about that with the cheating thing as well.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I agree, because I do think that there are people who are just improvements, right? So if you really believe that you're better than the guy she's currently dating and she jumps ship and come over to you, hopefully you have enough confidence in yourself that you can say, well, she did this because she knew how much better I was, not because she's some girl who just jumps from one lily pad to the next. And
well, maybe it's the better lily pad though. Perhaps the next lily pad is the guy better than you next time.
You have to hope that you can keep her interested. You have to hope that, you know, of course there are going to be other lily pads that come along. And you have to say like, no, you're fucking staying because check it out.
I decorated my lily pad.
Yeah. Like, look at this. I've done this. And, you know.
Look at these Christmas lights.
I know it looks enchanting over there, but the reality is that lily pad has bad credit, or, you know.
There's algae growing beneath it.
It says it's 6'2", but it's really 5'10". Yeah.
Well, whatever. Good luck. Good luck to you, man.
Yeah.
It sounds like, you know, maybe you got something there. If you want it and you think you want it, just strike.
Yeah.
Big listen. Fuck your boyfriend.
Keep trying. Keep trying.
Keep going for it.
Swing
dude.
for the fences.
Awesome. Well, happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Anything else?
That's it.
Guys, Oops the Podcast. Enjoy yourselves.
Check out our YouTube page.
Please.
Follow our Instagram, Oops the Podcast.
Send us messages. Let us know what's going on. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
Thank you and enjoy.
See ya.
Guys, if you like this video, we got plenty of other videos. Just click and subscribe and check them out. Thank you very much.
Oops.